Welcome everyone. Here we are again. Well, unless you're a first timer to this Lunchtime Tech series. I'm Neil Hamilton from Canterbury Tech. I'll be doing a very small amount of talking at the front of this as we have other people join. What have we got so far? 50 or so. So I'll flash a few slides up for a couple of minutes before I introduce Dana and Steve. We are, yes, welcome to I think this is the third of our Lunchtime Tech series, and we're going to continue running them until we and you are comfortable to come to in-person events again sometime in the coming weeks and months. I'm sure that'll happen. The subject of today is transforming UC's digital experience using human-centered design. So that's what you've signed up for. And I am going to share a couple of slides. So yes, you're all going to get bored of hearing about it, but Canterbury Tech Summit, much anticipated, 24th of November. I'm going to keep telling you about it at least once a fortnight for the next few months. I'm sure it will sell out, but those who don't already have it in your calendar, please plonk it in there. Full day at the University of Canterbury Students Association. More details coming soon once I do my job and figure out what the speaker program is. A couple of other things to make you aware of. There's lots of these challenges going on at the moment. There's the Food Fibre Agritech Challenge, which I'm part of. There's this one, the Health Tech Supernode Challenge. Do take a look if that's your gig. Applications due by the 3rd of April. Also, Tech Week is looming towards the end of May. Still taking submissions for events. This is a national thing, obviously, with a local coordinator for Canterbury for Tech Week. So keen to see a decent range of events running. Please take a look and consider putting something forward. And here's some other things going on. Is it today or tomorrow? I think it's in my calendar for today. The High Tech Awards finalists online. So easy to join. I don't know what the big H at the end is for, but we'll ignore that. And here's some other things. Electrify Aotearoa for women startup founders. A lot of ecosystem wraparound here, should be well worth attending. And the BOMA Agri Summit in Christchurch in June. There's a few things to be aware of. And whoa, we're done already. How about that? That was quick. Let me stop sharing in that case, and a very brief introduction to people I don't know terribly well, but they are Steve Alexander, who's Managing Director of Purpleshirt, I'll let you talk about Purpleshirt rather than me attempt to, and Dana Burnett, Director of Product and Delivery at UC. I'm going to hand over to you two, and I will fade into the background whilst you do some talking.
Cool. Thanks for having us, Neil. And kia ora koutou, everyone. As Neil said, I'm Steve Alexander and Managing Director of Purpleshirt. For those of you who've never heard of us, we're in Auckland and recently established ourselves in Christchurch. We're a customer experience, innovation and user experience consultancy, and we've been working with Dana and the team at UC to transform their digital experience using human-centered design. We work primarily across B2B and consumer experiences with the likes of clients such as Air New Zealand, Xero, TVNZ, obviously University of Canterbury, which we're super excited about, and ASB. Firstly, I'd like to thank Canterbury Tech for having us today. On the call with me, I have my Otautahi-based lead, Chris Green, who's our head of customer experience and innovation. And obviously, I've also got the wonderful Dana, who is UC's Director of, and I'll take a breath here, Research, Teaching and Learning and Digital Experience. So today, Dana and I are going to share with you how UC has committed to becoming experience-led through using human-centered design. And we're using that human-centered design techniques to drive transformative digital experiences that will enable them to meet the needs of their diverse communities that they serve and ultimately overcome some of the challenges that the tertiary sector is facing.
Right. Thanks, Steve. And I will mention that my title has changed. It is, as Steve mentioned it, probably one of the longest titles I've had, I think. So before we get started, I think it's important to understand that prior to the pandemic, the industry was experiencing significant disruption. There were forces in play that were and continue to destabilise higher education. The value of a degree was being questioned, new entrants in the form of venture capital-backed startups had entered the fray, and increasing sector rivalry were forcing universities to question the validity of their business models. And as well, students were beginning to question their relevance. Of course, in 2020, every industry globally was suddenly and significantly disrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic, but perhaps none more so than higher education. Learners left campuses in droves, international students stayed home, classes were forced online after decades of debate, and administrators and academics were forced to quickly adapt. Prior to COVID, universities were facing significant budgetary and operational challenges and increasingly relevant questions around the value of what they do. COVID was a catalyst that forced us into a process of reflection and reinvention to navigate the social and economic factors that impact demand, as well as the role of online education in our business models. What else can I say? But what an exciting time to be in higher education. And for us at UC, it was time to reinvent the role of digital, to create opportunities where digital could add real value to the organisation beyond the provision of traditional technology services. So, using a process of co-design with academic and professional staff, including a number of well-attended workshops with the digital team, we developed a digital vision, which acts as our Southern Cross, Digital Services Southern Cross. The vision positions us as an enabler to deliver relevant, distinctive, and world-class learning, research, and collaborative experiences to a global audience. In addition, the digital vision uncovered 5 technology pillars that will enable UC to create new value, explore new business models, and become distinctive in the education market. The pillars will enable us to improve learning, research, and workplace outcomes and deliver new learning experiences. So as you can see, being experience-led, looking across those pillars, features at this level of our strategy, which demonstrates the commitment of our department to co-design experiences with students and staff. What this pillar means from a practical perspective is that improvements to the experience will be driven by the end user. And as a result, the experiences that we design will be smart, accessible, inclusive, and enhance collaboration. So to achieve this, we've adopted a human-centered design as a framework for building empathy with our end users. And to support us on that journey, we're working with partners such as Purpleshirt to accelerate our human-centered design capability and capacity. And this will ensure that it's baked into the strategic framework that we've put in place. During the early phases of our human-centered design adoption, we've ran into various definitions and perceptions as to what it is and how it should be executed. Over to you, Steve.
Thanks, Dana. For those of you to whom human-centered design, which is a little bit of a mouthful, so I'm going to abbreviate it, if that's all right, to HCD from here on in. If you're not familiar with it, it's probably best described as a creative approach to problem solving that starts with the people you are solving for and ends with new solutions that meet their needs. At the heart of any well-run HCD process is the use of what we frame as ethnographic research to identify opportunity areas that an organisation can respond to. From there, an iterative cycle of design, prototype, and test is used to build confident solutions and further tailor them to the different needs of our customers.
So for us, human-centered design was a bit of a no-brainer. I think, we're all experienced in the commercial world and felt that we needed to challenge the status quo and adopt a bit of an outside-in approach to the delivery of new services and experiences, which is becoming increasingly important when you consider the environment in which we're operating. So we chose to bed HCD into our strategic framework, and it's played a critical role in the formation of our digital vision. Steve and the team have run numerous co-design workshops to build a comprehensive understanding of the challenges faced by our professional and our academic staff, and how digital could be leveraged to improve their experiences and provide them with the capability of what they need to deliver a world-class student experience. I think there's also been an impact from a wider trust engagement relationship with our stakeholders. So we're a fairly new digital leadership team. And by demonstrating that we understand their business, and customers, our students, it's brought us closer together in the dreaming, the planning, and now the delivering. Human-centered design has also enabled us to reposition digital services, so our old IT department, to digital services, and shifting us from being perceived as all about networks, computers, firewalls, all that stuff under the hood, to being seen as a different type of dance partner for the university, critical in enabling engagement, recruitment, better support services, and beyond.
Cool, thanks, Dana. So once we'd had the digital vision endorsed, we needed to address the elephant in the room, which was that there was no real singular reference point for the student experience. So we made the recommendation to use human-centered design techniques to create a picture of the end-to-end learner experience. The next step for us was to develop what we started to refer to as the learner lifecycle, a model that's representative of the student experience that would provide a collective understanding of the stages learners move through while at UC. This framework would allow us to explore and document learners' current and future state experiences, from first discovering and researching UC as a prospective learner to being an engaged alumni long after their studies have concluded. With an emphasis on the digital experience, the learner lifecycle is a tool to understand where future investment might best be placed by building a deep understanding of who UC's customers are and what they need from their university. The learner lifecycle was definitely an exercise in co-creation. We enlisted the help of learners from diverse backgrounds and worked with them to define the phases of the journey, identify their pain points, needs, and explored both the current and future state experiences with them. We also ran generative workshops in which we explored potential solutions to commonly experienced problems.
The learner lifecycle resulted in a creation of a number of key artifacts that have been widely adopted by UC, leading to an increase in a focus on customer centricity and an overall appreciation for the value that human-centered design brings. These artifacts enable individuals to understand where they can add value to the learner experience, and I think more importantly, provide a common reference for who our customers are, their experiences, and the role that digital plays both now and the future where we're trying to be. So like most sophisticated organisations, we have platforms that students need to weave in and out of, and frameworks we've found, like the learner lifecycle, help us stitch them together in a way that focuses on the student. And this is something that UC hasn't done before. Additionally, as part of this, we've discovered the power of storytelling and using a visual narrative to help stakeholders understand the future that they're signing up for. It's amazing the difference it makes having a visualization of the experience that people can feel a deep sense of connection to. And I have to say, it's made our conversations easier with senior stakeholders and factors into our key strategic documents, including our business cases. To date, we've used this process to develop our key strategic framework consisting of the digital vision, our learner life cycle, and our digital touchpoint strategy. We're now in the process of applying the same methodology to postgraduate and work integrated learning experiences for students, as well as an emerging product strategy that's specifically focused on mobile and web. We're learning a great deal about how our customers use each of our digital touch points. And now the challenge for us is actually to execute on this insight, but having that customer centricity baked into our digital product strategy ensures that our efforts are aligned with UC's wider strategic vision and with the current and future needs of our customers. So what's quickly become evident to me specifically is the ability of human-centered design to help us develop a holistic view of our business. The focus on customer centricity has quickly become the glue that binds experience, technology, process, and operations together. It provides that common language for us. And for us, it's providing a lens from which we can articulate the problems we're trying to solve and opportunities that we're taking advantage of. So it's much easier to align different viewpoints, which there are many of across the university, as we're no longer acting on assumption, but a shared understanding of what it's like to learn at UC. The impact of human-centered design has also been far-reaching. Not only does it make it easier for people along the journey, but it also helps us to manage change, and to think about how we design our processes and our operational models that underpin the experiences that we're designing. So we're not just thinking about the technology outcomes, the digital outcomes. It provides insight into how we configure our platforms, model our resourcing, and define our roles. The benefits of adopting HCD have become evident as we've delved deeper into our transformation. We've applied it to more contexts. As I mentioned earlier, the postgraduate experience, now how we actually manage our CRM and our engagement and relationships with students, through to work integrated learning. And we're finding that we're continually improving how we apply this insight to the various work streams across our digital portfolio.
Thanks, Dana. We're going to take a wee diversion into the world of integrated learning before we get into the mobile experience, which is why I'm pretty sure most of you are here. But really, work integrated learning has been a great example of how UC has used human-centered design to galvanise the organisation around a shared understanding of the customer experience. The basic premise, for those of you that aren't familiar with work integrated learning, is that it's for students to integrate theory into real-world practice. It's a complex combination where the student needs of students, the university, and industry must be balanced. Work integrated learning has widely been adopted across UC as it provides the opportunity for students to deepen their learning and apply their skills in practice. Many of the colleges have embraced it and have built it into their curriculum, but to some extent, they've done this in isolation. And as a result, there are inconsistencies that negatively impact work integrated learning outcomes. Applying human-centered design to, work integrated learning, too many acronyms, has been a bit of a revelation to the university. It's raised awareness of students' concerns that they're not ready for a professional environment. It's raised inconsistencies in both the administrative processes and technologies that underpin the experience right across the university. And most importantly, it's enabled the colleges to recognise that there are nuanced differences in the experiences they offer, but when it really boils down to it, they're all delivering to similar outcomes.
Thanks, Steve. It's been a valuable piece of work. So now we have a consistent understanding of the customer journey. We can use that as a basis to assess the validity of different technology solutions that are required to manage and coordinate the large numbers of students who participate in work integrated learning. And the insight gained from the HCD research we've conducted has informed the design of the digital experience for the upcoming placement platform that we're working on and a broader student ecosystem. Additionally, it's enabled us to better define the roles required to support these initiatives. So at the end of the day, we're much better equipped to support the needs of our students. So we're now entering that really exciting phase of our transformation when we're starting to move into execution. Sometimes it feels like I think that you're in that design and analysis for a while. So it's great to be looking at some of our key digital touch points and how we're going to execute on that. One of the biggest opportunities for us has been that will resolve the challenges that our learners feel and face is the reinvention of our mobile application. So up to this point, our mobile experience has been less than ideal, and the research has proven that we can leverage mobile to build better connections with our learners and simplify the interactions that they have with the university if we deliver a compelling experience.
Yeah, thanks, Dana. Applying human-centered design to the development of product strategy is something that we've been doing for a long time. When nobody is listening, we really talk about this process within Purpleshirt as human-centered requirements analysis. The process to develop a human-centered product strategy for UC's mobile experience began way back when we started co-designing the digital vision and learner lifecycle. Learners were adamant that we could do a better job and that mobile for the on-campus undergraduate learner should anchor that digital experience. The general consensus was that mobile wasn't compelling to use on an everyday basis, and learners had an appetite for mobile to be deeply integrated into their daily interactions with their peers and with the university. During lots and lots of workshops, we explored how mobile could solve many of the pain points that learners were experiencing on a daily basis, which resulted in the identification of a distinct vision and set of principles that would be used to underpin UC's mobile strategy.
Involving learners in the co-design process has enabled us to develop a roadmap for mobile that we've got confidence in. Steve and the team did this by creating a number of low fidelity concepts that were shared with learners for feedback using unmoderated testing methods. And from this research, we were able to fine tune our areas of focus as we knew they were aligned with what our customers want. So we're in the process of recruiting our mobile squad over the next few months, a really exciting program of work. And to whet your appetite, we thought we'd share what the future state mobile experience at UC could look like. Now, these are very early stage concepts. We've got a lot of work to do before we firm up on things, but we're really excited to give you a bit of a sneak preview.
Cool, thanks, Dana. I thought it might be useful to provide a bit more context as to how these mock-ups were used. And if anyone has got a keen eye for design, that you'll see here that we're using some fonts that would definitely not make it into production. As Dana mentioned, these mock-ups were first created to support the prioritization of features that had been identified through the extensive research we completed. We did this by running a series of unmoderated tests in which participants were asked open-ended questions relating to specific screens and, for all intents and purposes, features. For those of you who aren't familiar with unmoderated testing, it's a method that we use where there is no facilitator. The participants video records their interactive session and provides commentary based on a predefined set of questions that are embedded into the prototype. We chose this method to enable us to move quickly. And given that we were proposition testing, that is, we were testing whether or not we'd got the prioritization of features right, we didn't need a facilitator to dig into more detailed analysis around, say, usability or accessibility. Okay, so this is what you all came for. So what we've done is developed a bit of a narrative that we included in the mobile strategy. And this is effectively where Dana was talking to earlier about the use of storytelling through all our strategic documents. And it's really indicative of the type of experience that mobile will provide at UC and tells the story of a day in the life of Mary, who is an undergraduate learner. So early one morning, Mary opens the app to a personalized home screen where she can quickly see what she has on. She can also access course material and resources. She can view notifications and any upcoming reminders. And from here, she can choose to further navigate to her calendar and learning portal, among other key features. Later on that morning, after a short drive to campus, she parks and pays for her parking straight from the app.
Thanks, Steve. So on her way to class, she receives a push notification telling her the next class has changed location based on her preferences. Mary can choose to be guided there by the app. And once she walks through the door, she receives a pop-up notification that she's successfully checked into class. Depending on the class, she might use the app to ask questions during a lecture or provide feedback following it. At the library later that day, Mary needs to print some readings. She checks her library balance, which can be quickly topped up within the app. To release the printing, she scans her digital ID. She borrows a few books based on recommendations in her class chat using her digital ID to complete the transaction.
Closer to lunchtime, she's feeling a bit hungry and she's strolling around campus to find somewhere to eat. She accesses her map to see what's open and what is the least busy. While at a cafe eating, Mary opens her app to see what's on for the rest of the day. She has time before a scheduled appointment, so decides to book a nearby study space and share an invite to one of her study groups to join if they are free. Mary is directed to the study space where she has never been before via AR wayfinding within the application itself.
So Mary uses her digital ID to gain access to the room. Inside the room, there is a screen that displays her course content and the ability to video call a friend who is studying at home to go through their latest assignment. The students have a question about the exam format, so they ask their class chat. Within minutes, a classmate replies with the answer they were looking for. A notification. During this, a notification reminds Mary of an appointment with a careers advisor in 10 minutes. When she arrives at the reception, a pop-up notification tells her she's arrived. She waits while the staff member is automatically notified. If a student doesn't have an appointment yet, they can join a virtual queue and receive a notification when it's their turn. Following the appointment, a notification pops up asking Mary if she would like to book another one in 6 weeks, which she confirms. From her booking, she can also see past appointments that provide support services and access any notes and recommendations that were provided.
After finishing up uni for the day, Mary returns home to study. She's very conscientious. Watching her lecture from the couch, she watches it on her laptop, but uses her mobile to take part in a quiz and asks the lecturer a live question, which can get voted up or down by her classmates. In the class chat, there is a lot of discussion following the lecture, which helps to answer a few of her questions. Before heading to bed, Mary reviews the next day's schedule. She is reminded she has an assignment due on Friday, so knows she will need to focus on it tomorrow. Having talked to UC Careers earlier in the day, she wants to learn more about internships, but doesn't know where to start. Using the 24/7 chat, she asks for suggestions and finds out about an upcoming careers event, which she adds into her calendar. So as you can see from the storyboards, we've set a rather ambitious goal for the impact that mobile will have on the student experience, and we're more than excited. Can't wait to get started.
Agreed. Thanks, Steve. You know, I think it's fair to say that the program of work hasn't been without its challenges. If you're considering adopting human-centered design, it's best to understand what you're committing to. Some of the challenges that we've faced, and one of them is a key challenge, which I don't think is unique to UC, was the challenge of securing staff engagement. And this was complicated by the university's COVID response and the commitments of staff, as well as the demands of other co-design activities. We overcame this by being flexible with how and when we engaged with staff, and ensuring that we maximise the value of the time when we did have them available, so that it felt productive, well organised, and also including shifting to online co-design workshops and mastering tools such as Miro and Teams breakout rooms. In addition, the largest challenge we faced was, surprisingly, I think for a lot of people, because we're a university, was engaging with students, and specifically those who are members of equity groups. Unlike many consumer experiences where the customers are readily available, students inhabit a whole different world, and often have limited availability due to holiday breaks, study leave, examinations, assignments, and so on. So we had to be really careful to respect the fact that many of them also were experiencing hardship due to the pandemic. And we wanted to minimise the effort that they had to go to be involved in co-design activities. So it's been a real learning curve for us. Not only did we need to balance the needs of the individual students, but we also needed to ensure that the administration of co-design activities didn't overburden individual staff members. And I think it's fair, you know, it does take a lot of time and effort to organise and manage this. As a result of this experience, we've recently had our Digital Governance Board endorse the development of a digital experience panel for UC, which will see students voluntarily registering to participate in co-design activities. So it's a really big and positive step forward for us. Much like a customer panel run by a telco or an airline, the panel will simplify greatly the access to students and increase the impact that they have on the designed experience.
Yeah, the establishment of the panel was an indication that the organisation understands the value of co-design, human-centred design methodologies, and broadly user experience. It's a really, really big step in the right direction, and something that will enable digital to build and maintain a solid understanding of what it's like to not only learn, but also to work at UC. So, to wrap things up, UC's journey doesn't stop here. UC's got a large program of work for 2022 and 2023, and HCD is at the heart of many of the initiatives that will transform the student and staff experience. We've really enjoyed being able to share UC's HCD journey with you, and are grateful to Canterbury Tech for the invite to talk, and Dana for taking the time to co-present with me today.
And you too, Steve.
Been a pleasure.
Both of you, thanks for joining us. Look, questions, put them into the chat, please. I've got a couple to seed things. My colleague Daniel will keep an eye on chat, and between us, as we're bombarded with questions, we'll try and filter through them. So here's a couple to kick things off. You're obviously aiming for a mobile platform and experience that's deeply embedded in the students' lives. Delivering against such a thing will take a while. So how are you divvying things up into drops of functionality or experience that makes sense and start to gain acceptance and engagement? Because ideally you'd have the whole thing all at once, but that's clearly not possible.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a very astute observation. So, you know, I guess like a number of places, we've got, you know, a lot of legacy technology and the ways that we manage data to enable the experience that we've just talked through that need to be addressed. So for us, it's a balance of prioritizing those dependencies to deliver on that experience and measuring that against obviously the feedback and the research that we've done with students to be able to go, okay, you know, we've got to do these pieces of work in the background to actually get us to this piece of to this experience. So it's just about how we actually coordinate and organize some of those dependencies that feed into that experience. So it's actually, I mean, it's fair to say that it's looking across, you know, a large portion of our portfolio, and I'd say that why we've got focuses, you know, across absolutely cyber and security. A lot of how we're designing our portfolio is to enable an improved experience for students.
Neil, if I can add, as part of the mobile strategy, we've defined 3 horizons for UC to work to. The first one is really about a set of features that helps restore, I guess, trust and credibility in the app. So trying to establish that pattern of regular use where it is meaningful for a student to engage with the app on a daily basis. Horizon 2 is about extending that core functionality and moving into things that have additional value, such as being able to make a booking for a support service or something like that. And then H3 is really about surprise and delight, and really going above and beyond what a student expects the university to deliver in a mobile experience. So if you think about it along that timeline, we've kind of got, right, let's do the basics really well, re-establish trust, let's extend that, and then let's do some really cool stuff that will, as I said, surprise and delight in the future.
Without giving away too many secrets, roughly what are those horizons? How long will this delivery phase run for?
Oh, you're asking for everything, Neil. We're very much at the beginning of the journey. So you know, as I said in the presentation, we're just at the starting point of forming up our squad and assessing how we're going to approach this. You know, from a technology perspective to support those horizons. So certainly the stretch goal for me is that, we are, well through Horizon 1 by the end of the year. But that obviously has a number of dependencies against that. But I think that's what my boss is expecting of me as well. So
we won't hold you to it, and we will watch with interest your progress. What about
hopefully bring it back at the end of the year, get some feedback.
Having led some large transformation things myself, wrangling the multitude of stakeholders that you have in a complex organization like UC, I'm sure that's provided some challenge, although maybe the advent of COVID has helped spotlight this thing and give it some priority. Talk a bit about some of the challenges of wrangling the many people that are involved in this, and how you've generated good sentiment and engagement rather than the opposite.
Yeah. So I think a part of actually bringing everyone together and on the same journey is a process that we've gone through, and sharing regularly back the progress that we're making and the findings. And the university is quite a diverse community in the sense that you've got your corporate structures around your student supports, your finance, your people and culture, and then there's a layer of academia that kind of sits around that too. So I think we've had to reach out far and wide, but also be aware of where we're informing and not always consulting with staff, but just making sure that they're aware of what's going on and being part of the journey with us. I think, definitely one of the challenges for us has been around working with our equity groups and really understanding some of the, the vision and the appropriateness around an integration of our bicultural approaches to this. So consult, talk to, inform, we've done, and Steve and the team have done a lot of that across the wider university. I don't think there's any secret sauce, Neil, to that.
There's no secret sauce, but I think maybe the big shift is that everything that we've done has been informed through a deep understanding of UC's customers. So we're no longer in a kind of subjective frame where I guess a view of a future or current state experience is subjective. We've talked to customers, they've told us what their expectations are. And so it's, to some extent, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dana, but I think it's made that conversation a lot easier because we're able to remove an individual staff member's point of view, even though it's valid, but really we're focused on what customers are telling us and balancing that with the objectives of the organization. So I think that's had a big impact in getting people to buy into the journey because they're experiencing a degree of insight around the customers that they haven't experienced before.
Absolutely. And I think I'd also add on to that, as we said in the presentation, the fact that we are out there talking to students and staff goes a long way, and instead of making assumptions from one standpoint.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Daniel to pick something from the chat now, as he's hopefully been keeping a closer watch than I have. Go, Daniel.
Yep. There's a couple of questions, one for Dana and one for Steve. First one is for Dana from Daniel Paris. He says, Dana, what has been the most unexpected learning during your HCD journey?
I think it comes back to that HCD takes the heat out of the politics, really what we've talked about. I mean, you get lots of lovely learnings and surprises around students and what's important to them as opposed to your own inherent assumptions. But I think for me it is, we have a common language to talk about with people. Like we all talk about students and student experience, and it doesn't matter whether you're sitting in libraries, whether you're teaching a program, whether you're sitting in digital services. It gives us that common language to speak to. And I also, the other element for me is that it always goes beyond technology and digital, and I think it helps that change journey for staff, particularly when you're making big technology digital changes, and it's really easy to actually not overlook but not have the commitment to thinking about those future ways of working and the supports that are needed around that to deliver a new technology solution or a new digital experience. And I think it encourages staff to examine that part of the change journey, and the impact that their processes and the way that they work have on students as well. Yeah, very, very much becomes that glue for those conversations to make digital change.
Cool, thank you. And then for you, Steve, a bit more of a theoretical question. When you're doing, say, HCD, and I mean, in the context of UC, obviously the humans at the center of this design was the students, the learners. What do you do in the case where there's an organization and you say have two distinct groups of humans that you want to put at the center of design? I mean, in theory, say at the UC, one being the students, which you actually used, but then say you had researchers specifically or academics. Does it just do you run those two HCD processes kind of in parallel, or is it just too complicated and you always just try and keep it to one, or how does that work?
It's a really good question. And UC is a really good example because the number of different customer groups within the university itself is endless. You can cut it lots of ways. You've got undergraduate, you've got postgraduate. Even within postgraduate, you've got talk-based postgraduate learning versus research-based, and it goes on. And I think what we learnt within the context of UC pretty quickly was that it was unrealistic to address all of them in one hit. So we developed, I guess you could call them areas of focus. So the learner life cycle was quite focused on the undergraduate, what we call hybrid learner. So that's somebody who is learning both online and digitally. So that's your standard domestic student attending UC. And that provided a really good baseline to understand the student experience. Now, when we've then looked at the postgrad experience, which one of our Christchurch-based consultants, Rhiannon, is working on at the moment, we needed to deep dive into that world because it is very different from the undergraduate experience. So I think you're looking at, it's a terrible word, but like the delta between the different groups and their behaviors and understanding whether they are more alike or more different to determine whether or not you need to do a deep dive. And I guess the challenge for UC is, especially with the pandemic and the lack of international students on campus, we haven't been able to really explore that part of the experience yet. And to be honest, one of the other reasons why we've got quite focused is because of time. We've needed to support UC in delivering key strategic outputs, and to do that and address all of the different student cohorts would be too complex. It would take too long and we would need to talk to too many people. So breaking it up is one thing that you can definitely do. I think the litmus test is really understanding what is that difference between the different groups. If they're same, then you can do it at once. If there's some significant behavioral differences or experiential differences, then you need to address them as different unique groups.
Maybe one more, Daniel, and then we'll call it a day.
Yep, another one actually specific to the work done at UC. So this can be to either Steve or Dana. This is from Paul Sweetnam saying, "Hi Dana, Steve, what has been the number one key requirement that the customers want from a mobile experience?
Ooh, I've probably got an opinion, and then Dana's probably got an opinion on that one. For me, the killer app, if you will, I guess is the concept of an integrated calendar. So the university or universities as a sector are very good at issuing timetables, but they're not very good at giving their customers an integrated view of what's going on in their interactions with the university. So something that came through really strongly was this concept of, yes, show me a timetable, but show me it within the context of everything else I've got going on. So assignment due dates, fee due dates, they don't necessarily want to see the latter. But you know, I've got an appointment with the graduate office because I'm exploring my postgrad options next year. I've got a appointment with a counsellor. So it's really around starting to wrap all of those various date-driven events, and also integrating their UC sponsored social life. So it may be that they're a member of a ski club or a book club, which is run through the university, and putting those events into their calendars as well. So for me, that was the single kind of, it's not even a single, but that was the focus that they wanted. That was the priority that they wanted to see. What about you, Dana? What was your view?
Yeah, I'd totally agree with that. You know, I think currently we segment up information for students based on how we structure ourselves and our technology platforms. So, you know, for the students, it really is bunny hopping around. And that was certainly came loud and clear through the research that the Stephen team did. Was, you know, how do we join that up for them, reduce the workload of being a student at UC, so that they can focus on their studies and their social life.
Even more importantly. Well, look, that issue isn't unique to UC by any means, is it? Large organizations are usually better at organizing themselves internally, and their interactions with customers around that internal organization and systems is how it's been done in the past. So it takes a lot to change that. So congrats to you guys for accepting the challenge, and we all hope you deliver successfully over the coming, well, the remainder of this year and through next. And we're going to call it a day there. So I'd just like to thank Leader, some thanks from Dana and Steve. Thank you. I'm sure
Thanks for having us.
Echoes.
Yeah, thanks, Neil.
Thanks to those who are asking the questions, and for Daniel's assistance along the way as well. The next one of these is in a fortnight's time. Surprise. That makes it the 12th of April. Subject matter is still a little up in the air, which means I haven't done my job yet, but we should be able to confirm that in the next few days. There's a few interesting speakers and subject matter kicking around. So that is it for today. Thanks again, Dana and Steve, for joining us, and to the audience for joining also.
Great. Thanks, guys. Have a good afternoon. See ya.